Mayorkas, there have been about 56,000 unaccompanied children that have come across the border since President Biden became president. As you know, once these children are placed with sponsors in the United States, there's a requirement that there be a 30-day follow-up telephone call to determine their status. You're aware of that, aren't you?
That is within the domain of Health and Human Services, Senator. I am not intimately familiar with the process once the child arrives in the shelter and care of HHS.
You don't know what happens to the children once they're placed with a sponsor?
It is our responsibility in the Department of Homeland Security to transfer the unaccompanied child within 72 hours to the care and custody of Health and Human Services. I know that HHS, of course, is responsible to place that child with a responsible family member or relative. And I don't know the details of the HHS process.
So once you hand them off to DHS, you wash your hands of that burden. Would it surprise you to know that just this last fiscal year, in the 38-day follow-up calls to sponsors of unaccompanied children, 18% of them did not answer the telephone, and there's been no subsequent follow-up on these children placed with sponsors, many of whom are not even related to these children. And frankly, the Biden administration doesn't know whether they're being forced into labor, being trafficked for sex, being abused or neglected. Would that shock you to learn that as many as 18% of those children the federal government has simply lost?
Senator, that would indeed surprise me, and I would respectfully disagree with your characterization of our responsibility. We don't wash our hands of a burden when we're dealing with...
Well, if you don't know what happened to them, they don't answer the phone once they've been placed with a sponsor, how would you characterize the complete neglect of the welfare of that child after they don't answer, the sponsor doesn't answer the phone, 30 days after they've been placed with, the children have been placed with a sponsor?
Senator,
how would you characterize that?
Senator, I have confidence in the dedication of the men and women of the Department of Health and Human Services to act in the best interest of those children, and I defer your question to those dedicated men and women. That is
so. It's I'm not asking about them. I'm asking about the policies and procedures of the Biden administration. Apparently, no one in the Biden administration cares about those roughly 10,000 children that don't respond, their sponsors don't respond to follow-up telephone calls. So frankly, we don't know what happened to them, good, bad, or indifferent.
Senator,
let me ask you about another topic. Recently, you issued new enforcement guidelines, September the 30th, 2021. And are you familiar with the notion of push factors and pull factors? I'm confident you are.
Yes, I am, Senator.
So push factors are violence, poverty, desire for a better life, things we all as human beings understand. Pull factors are incentives for people to make the dangerous journey to the United States in the tender mercies of the drug cartels and the criminal organizations. Do you agree? Maybe not entirely with my characterization, but those are pull factors?
I understand your point, Senator.
Yeah. Well, do you agree with Police Chief Magnus, who is the Biden administration's nominee for Customs and Border Protection, that a non-enforcement policy by the Department of Homeland Security when it comes to illegal immigration is a pull factor, encouraging more people to make that dangerous trip?
That would require me to speculate because we don't have a non-enforcement policy.
I'm just asking you whether you agree with Chief Magnus, the CBP nominee, whether a policy of non-enforcement would be a pull factor.
It could be.
when you issued these non-enforcement guidelines,
Oh, they are not.
you said this. You said the fact that an individual is a removable non-citizen is not alone to be a basis for an enforcement action against them. Is that what you said?
Yes, it is.
You don't interpret that to be a statement to the criminal organizations that smuggle people illegally into the United States, or to the migrants themselves, that if you don't commit any other crimes other than illegally entering the United States, you are basically going to successfully navigate our immigration system and end up being able to stay permanently in the United States?
Absolutely not. That's 100% false, and I'll tell you why. If I'm
100% false.
Yes, and the reason is, one reason, if I may, Senator, is because recent border crossers are a priority for enforcement action. And so there is, in fact, no incentive to bring somebody here because that individual will be a priority for apprehension and removal from the United States unless they have a basis under United States law to remain here.
Well, we know basically, based on Border Patrol projections, that this figure, 1.7 million, doesn't include 385,000 or so people who simply evade detection by Border Patrol. We know that there are about 350,000 people who are subject to a notice to appear in court or a notice to report. By my count, that's 735,000 people who have successfully made their way into the United States. And what you're telling us is that unless they commit some other offense other than illegal entry into the United States, it's no concern of yours.
No, that is inaccurate, Senator, if I may. Those individuals who have received notices to appear are recent border crossers and are priorities for enforcement and removal from the United States. They will be removed unless they make a claim to an immigration judge that they have a basis under United States law to remain here, and the judge rules accordingly. If the judge denies their claim, they will be removed from the United States under the guidelines that I issued on September 30th of this year.